Hello, everyone, and welcome to Got Thrones, a Game of Thrones podcast.
The Comic-Con edition.
Comic-Con edition. Comic-Con addiction. We're coming to you live from outside of Comic-Con. Well, it's not live, we're recording, but we're recording live outside of Comic-Con. We'll be popping back in for a few more panels very soon.
Yeah, but yesterday we had a chance to catch the Thrones panel in Hall H, which was pretty spectacular.
It was amazing.
Yeah. I didn't think I would be this excited. I tend to be a little bit sort of like eye-rolly around celebrities just because of my old job, but it was fun.
Yeah.
It was real fun.
It was really fun. It was hosted by Rob
McElhenney.
Thank you, from Always Sunny.
Yeah, who's done it, I guess...
He did it last year, too.
Yeah, did it last year as well, and was a huge super fan. So there was a really fun, like, super cut of Winters coming in, a couple of different sketches with him in it as well. This, I find, like, having also gone to the Preacher panel later that day was... This, I think, is, like, the fun part of Comic-Con, because there is a lot of exclusive content you get in Hall H, but it's really funny, like, weird, fun... It's funny content that is stuff that isn't typically leaked. It's not like... fan-made content. It's just it's very unique. It's very unique entertainment.
One thing that I really enjoy about Comic-Con in general, especially now that it's gotten so big, is when you have the panels moderated by celebrities that are also huge fans, like this one, or Yvette Nicole Brown from Community moderated the American Gods panel,
and Kevin Smith moderated the Preacher panel, which was like. Every once in a while he'd interject with like, that's so fucking metal, oh my god! It's really, you feel a kinship with these people in a way that you don't normally. They feel a little bit more reachable, a little bit more down to earth, and that tickles everyone, because it's sort of your celebrity gods coming down and playing with you a little bit. Yeah.
So let's chat pretty quickly about what we learned and just what, some insights and some just, that's neat.
Not super spoiler heavy, as these panels rarely are. I think the biggest one a couple years ago was season 4 when the Dorncast was introduced and people went apeshit. But there's just not much new at this point, since it just ended and they're already delaying production on season 7. There really wasn't much to talk about, i.e. like, you know, vis-a-vis new material. But we did learn that Conley Hill has a magnificent head of hair.
Oh, he has so much hair.
It's so luxurious. I want to touch it.
This is Varys, and he has like the hair that Donald Trump wants.
Oh my gosh, I've never seen a head of hair on an older man that I just wanted to like run my fingers through and just stroke it and braid it and just play with it. Like, it's a shock of hair.
It reminds me of, I'm forgetting the actor's name now, on Boston Legal.
John Larroquette.
John Larroquette. Yeah.
Yep.
Imagine John Larroquette's hair on Varys' body.
Where it's like you think the head is just trying to survive the hair that is emerging from it. The head is like, I'm secondary to the hair.
How does he deal with the humidity?
I don't know.
No wonder he shaves it.
That's my question, I guess. Like, because that's an impressive grow back. If he shaves it between seasons and it grows back like this, I mean, that's 8 months.
That's 8 months.
My hair didn't grow that fast
because he was doing Macbeth in Berkeley. Shortly after shooting, they might have arranged a shooting schedule such that he'd have a little bit more room.
I think or it's a skull cap. Which, I mean, with that kind of hair would probably be much easier. It's not like poor Mary McDonnell who had to wear hair out the back of her neck on Battlestar Galactica. So, oh, well, that was Conley Hill's hair.
That was Conley, so thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next week.
One thing I did notice, but they asked, they went down the panel, the cast in attendance was was, of course, not the cast, but David and Dan were in attendance. Conley Hill, Sophie Turner, Ian Ram, Isaac Hempstead Wright, Christian Nairn, Faye Marseille is the Wave, John Bradley, and Natalie Emanuel. And
Liam Cunningham.
And Liam Cunningham, who must love these events because I think he's here every year.
Yeah. And then Miguel Sapochnik, who was the director of
Battle of the Bastards.
And the reason Rob McElhenney was brought on is because he's also a director and close friend of him and directs on Always Sunny.
Miguel Sapochnik directs Always Sunny.
Yeah.
I know it. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
That man is incredibly talented. So, something interesting that I noticed when Conley Hill spoke, he had some very eloquent words just about the state of the word, and he said he despairs of the world as it is today and thinks we should be moving more towards inclusivity rather than exclusivity. And he used that when he was speaking about Varys, because he said, Varys is a guy who's very much judged by people who don't like him, and he's like, I think that's a lot of the way the world works. But my biggest takeaway from that was that I'm pretty sure that Aidan Gillen is actually aping Conleth Hill when he does Littlefinger's accent.
Yeah.
Because when Conleth, he's like, I despair of the world today. It's like, whoa.
He's so... His voice is about a register and a half lower than I anticipated.
He was almost harder to hear.
And he's very deliberate in his speech.
Yeah, he really, it made me really kind of fall in love with him just because he's very deliberate. He took time with what he said. He's definitely a funny, kind of laughy person because he giggled and he was very cheerful during certain parts of the panel, but when he spoke, he was very eloquent and measured and articulate in almost a subtle way.
Almost like a narratorial voice.
Yeah, I bet oh my gosh, I wonder if he does audiobooks or something like that. I bet it'd be really fun
if you could just read me bedtime stories.
I was going to say story time with Conleth Hill would be a huge hit.
It would be fantastic.
Really strange.
Another thing I really enjoyed seeing was Christian Nairn and Isaac Hempstead Wright's relationship.
Yeah, they seem to really, really, really have formed a bond, which I've read about before. It makes total sense. They've shot together, like, I don't think Bran's had a scene without Christian Nairn. I mean, more than one or two in his entire stint on the show. So it makes, and it's just adorable to me that like this big old DJ and this like young British actor are such good friends. It is very sad that he won't be back. It was sad because Ian Rand and Christian Nairn were both like, this is it. And I guess Faye Marseille too, but I didn't so much care about that.
Well, yeah, because she wasn't as connected.
Yeah.
Apparently, she and Macy are big buddies, though.
Yeah, apparently Macy kicked the shit out of her too. She is not so Faye Marseille is like is
a movement actress has a movement background.
Well, no, she also said that she had virtually no training in that kind of fight.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So really, the roles were reversed. Like Arya was the waif, and that like Maisie was the waif, and Faye Marseille was Arya. So she was like, she's like, Maisie constantly kind of bolstered her up and pushed her to keep going because she was kind of learning everything as they were filming, it seemed. And so she was really inspired by Maisie because she's so amazing and she's also so dedicated. So, I liked Faye Marseille. She was definitely, you could tell, I feel like you could kind of tell that she knew she wasn't going to be on another panel like this for a long time. She was just like letting it rip, really enthusiastic, and kind of didn't give a fuck about how she sounded. But seemed like a really cool lady. A couple of like big takeaways that I'm gonna stop saying the word takeaway. A couple of big points that were made that should be said first, in case you were not aware, and you probably are if you're listening to this. Season 7 will be delayed until the summertime, and it will be shortened. Rob McElhenney joked that he was like, "This seems personal. Why do you hate us?" And David and Dan very clearly stated that, hey, it's winter in Westeros. We have to shoot when it is winter time in all of our exteriors. So in Northern Ireland and in the other places that they shoot, that's not going to really happen until February. Or it's not going to... It might start happening in January, but it will definitely be happening in February. And post will take too long, so they refused.
Specifically, it was leaves off the trees. It wasn't, we need to make snow happen. It's... If there's leaves everywhere, that spoils everything.
Well, because you can create dependable snow. You can create that kind of fake stuff, like, because I lived in England for a little while, and it does not snow everywhere. It's not like it's a colder country, but it's fairly humid, so it just doesn't get dry enough. I think I don't know if my weather is. I think I just pulled it out of my ass, but it doesn't snow a whole lot where I was, at least.
They didn't give a good, clear answer to why less episodes.
I think they just don't have a story for it, to be honest. I think without the book, and I think without the book...
They're moving at their own speed, and their own speed is faster.
Yeah, and I think that's also, like, they've seen a little... Like, I think the trend now for shows like these that are such big hits is, like, stretch the story out for as long as you can. But, like, I mean, like, splitting the last season like Mad Men did, and Sopranos did that, too. So you have 2 shorter last seasons, so you can kind of eat... So you're not spreading your story too thin, but you're spreading the length of time out that people are interested. Also, to be perfectly frank, they might just be fucking tired. I mean, to be honest, David and Dan did... I don't know if they're just sick of the abuse of the fans. I certainly see a lot of it online because we're both book readers, but they just seemed kind of exhausted.
Yeah. They also... Yeah, they were... quieter than the actors during the whole run of things.
Sophie Turner was not quiet.
No, she was not.
So, I think it was David Benioff who came out and he's like, listen, just FYI, Sophie Turner made us all do a shot of vodka before we came out on stage, so these might not be as articulate answers as we were expecting. I'm not wondering if she didn't do 1 or 2 more, because she was definitely in a, like, a fuck everybody move. She
had some sass.
She was totally unapologetic about Sansa not telling Jon about the Knights of the Vale. She's like, what? She wanted the credit, and it made for good storytelling. And then
it was better TV, that's all.
Yeah, and then she
crapped in the faces of anyone who's a Sansa shipper.
Yes, she did. She was like, never. I hate it. They're brother and sister. At least they were raised that way. And David and Dan, if you make anything happen...
I'll kill you.
I will kill you. And Twitter was like, fuck you. We don't care. We shall not be moved. I among them. I'm still pulling for it because I like impossible ships and weird ones. So, Sansa shippers, if you're out there, you have a friend in me. And then also, she talks about how she really wanted Jon and Sansa to rule the North and Winterfell together because, and this is almost verbatim, she did not think Jon has the intellect or the experience to run Winterfell / the North on his own. And then Sophie Turner was like, and I agree. And then she also said that she kind of, and I agree with this as well, she sort of gave a little bit more insight into kind of what she thinks of Jon's decision making, and she thinks he makes the morally right decision. Whether or not it's the best decision for everyone is questionable. So I think we're really going to see, it's going to be some clear conflict between her and Littlefinger and Jon. Mm-hmm. So I think there's going to be 2 camps there next season. Is probably the only real-ish spoiler that we got from her, at least. But yeah, she was flipping the British middle finger all over the place.
Yeah.
When in regards to just like, oh, whatever, Jon, whatever. Like, it was kind of amusing. I forgot that she's 20. She's only 20, which I'm like, girl, you can't drink at 20 in America.
she referenced.
Stop announcing that.
She absolutely did not drink. My favorite moment of the panel was probably Liam Cunningham's story about Shireen, because I haven't cried enough because of Liam Cunningham.
It was, okay, so apparently what happened, like, he is very, 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 very attached to, it's just blanking my name, the girl who plays Shireen. Yeah. So and this is pretty well known, and obviously, like, how, like, you meet Liam Cunningham, or you hear him speak, and you're like, of course, he, like, would be a lovely surrogate father on any set. He's just happy to be there, and he's really sweet and very paternal. And his actual daughter was in the audience, and he was like, you guys will not believe what happened. He's like, I liberated the stag during season 5, the little one that I made, Shireen, and I swiped it from my daughter's wall of awesome. And I gave it to her, and then...
Which, how cool is it that his daughter has a wall of awesome?
I know, it's so sweet. And then, so they were watching, they watched the episodes together, and they watched the one where Shireen dies, but it seemed like Liam Cunningham, A, didn't know it was going to happen.
Or B, didn't know that was when.
Or didn't know how. And so he's like, oh, you gotta hold, and he told his daughter, like, hold on to this while we watch. So she's holding the stag. It was their
tradition.
Yeah, and so she's holding the stag, and this poor Carrie is walking down to her death holding the stag, and Liam Cunningham's told his daughter to watch this as Shireen gets burned at the stake, and he's like, I'm the worst father in the world! And his daughter was pretty upset. So.
Yeah, like, bawling on the floor, so he was watching his surrogate daughter die, while his real daughter was crying about it.
It was so funny. I really liked learning about... I loved that Miguel Sebastian was on this panel because I don't know a whole lot about this kind of filming, about filming massive battle scenes. I have a much more literary background and a much more creative performance-based background, so this is stuff that's totally out of my wheelhouse, at least. But just the ins and outs of how they were doing that, the different battles that they took, which at this point we know, the Battle of Cannae between Romans and Hannibal, and the Battle of Agincourt between the French and the English, and the 100 Years' War. I researched last night. I knew that those influences were there, but some of just the particulars, like how they wanted to, like in the original, when they filmed the phalanx scene, part of the benefit of that was they ran out of budget, and having the wall of shields around all the fighting meant that was handy because
They didn't have to show what was going on behind the wall of shields.
Exactly. You couldn't see anything else, so that simplified everything remarkably. They were also, supposedly, when that, like, during the pincer move, when the idea, if you're doing a pincer move and you're surrounded, some of the idea was, like, to have the cavalry come and run over the trapped soldiers. Now, if you're filming, if you've ever been on a set, you know there's no, like, there's very rarely a one-take wonder, especially not in something with this many logistics and moving parts. So everything had to have been filmed multiple times. Now, horses will run it. Horses do not like to run at humans, apparently,
because they've kind of had that trained out of them.
Well, yeah, and so and also, like, it kind of hurts them too. I would think. So horses don't like to run at humans, and according to Sapachi, you get them to do it once, they're going to argue with you if you do it twice, and they draw the line at 3 times. So they had to eliminate. So that was another piece of sort of their big budget that they had. They didn't have the budget to do that, or the logistics to do it as well. And it amuses me to see that this episode still was so groundbreaking and so large in scale. To see that they actually still had budget constraints really kind of brought home the fact, something that he said later, he's like, listen, if you have a big vision like this, it's always going to end up smaller than you expect, no matter how big it eventually gets. So part of me is like, I really want to see what you actually planned.
Anne Bogart, who's a theater director, has talked about this, that those sorts of constraints generally lead to a better product.
Interesting.
That if you have all the money to throw at something, then you don't have to make the creative choice.
Oh, that's a good point. That's really interesting. It's kind of, I would liken it to in fashion. Before you leave the house, always take one thing off. Not your shirt, but you know. And then the last thing about the battle that I really enjoyed was they didn't have enough bodies. So you saw these piles of bodies everywhere, you know, the big things that got in the way of everything. Now, there was chicken wire. Obviously, they weren't actual piles of bodies. Like, that's, you know, I would imagine, against Irish OSHA. But they had chicken wire structures underneath them, and then everybody piled on to give the illusion of large piles of bodies. But they still didn't have enough people, so apparently between shots, art department had to herd around these corpses to have them move to different spots to give the illusion of a much larger pile when they weren't doing wide shots. Which just is, I did a write-up of this. If you want to read it, it's probably redundant at this point, but it struck me as very Monty Python-esque to have all of a sudden, like, cut, I'm gonna go, that have all these, like, bloody and dead zombie people moving around from pile to pile.
I enjoyed all of those, just getting those aspects.
Yeah, that was really... This was definitely, like, I don't know that this is a panel I would have wanted to have waited, like, 24 hours for, as people wound up doing, because Hall H
is crazy pants.
Yeah. If you want to come to Comic-Con, here's my advice. Decide if you want to do Hall H or decide if you want to do Comic-Con, because at this point, they're 2 separate conventions. I could, like, these kinds of moments that I understand why people come, because it really is, like, it's not, these aren't panels that the actors and the producers are bored doing.
No.
You know, they're excited to do this, and they're excited to talk about it. And
it's not like being on a press junket and having the same conversation with 4 different morning shows over the course of a day and a half.
Yeah, absolutely. It's much different than that. Everybody's, like, the Preacher panel was that times 10 for sure, partially just because, like, Kevin Smith and Seth Rogen are such... And Evan Goldberg are such big nerds, and it's adorable. And then I think we can just do bullet points for the rest of it. Everybody kind of...
I did a couple points of humor. I enjoyed Sam. Sam speculated on how he should die. John Bradley did.
And he's thought about this.
He's thought about this, and he wants him to be climbing up... He's been told that books are useless all his life, and finally he's at this huge library, and so he's going to climb to the top of the highest shelf in the library at the Citadel for porn.
Not knowing and not appreciating his own weight.
And take the bookshelf down, die buried in books.
Yeah. Death by books, not by battle. So he and John have slightly parallel journeys. There was indication that we'll see a lot at the Citadel next year, that Sam's role will be kind of as important as we've all sensed it.
Yeah, we speculated on that quite a bit.
So I'm really excited for that, because I was like, oh my god, it's going to be like Westerosi Hogwarts. Please, 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 please. I'm also excited just to see more of that door guy.
Yeah. I want a spin-off. I want an Office-style hip spin-off where he's Michael Scott.
Or no, he's Dwight. I feel like
he's probably Dwight.
And then Sam is clearly John Straczynski. And then, or it'd be fun. Like, I feel like that would be the equivalent of Sam's waif. Guy's just like, no. And then, so, Natalie Emanuel didn't say much, but she did mention that she loves Daenerys and Missandei. Boy,
there were 8 different pronunciations in the course of the panel.
So, yeah, she loves the fact that, like, and she mentioned that, Missandei gets her power from knowledge, and she and Daenerys really build the other up. And it's sort of it's nice because Daenerys doesn't really have a girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we'll see a little bit more of that in Asha. I mean, platonic, but
maybe not.
It's nice. I like that Missandei, having been a slave, does not feel like a slave with Daenerys, and that seemed to come across.
Mm-hmm.
And Natalie Emanuel is truly stunning. I don't see much of her outside of her costuming, but she, like, it was just striking. I feel like I'm a girl and I'm allowed to compliment a woman on how nice she looks. Really, 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 like, stunning and sparkly lady.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about Sansa and Sophie. One of the really, really, really favorite parts that I had was Ian Rand explaining sort of Ramsay's motivation and where Ramsay comes from. And he said that he played Ramsay with a lot of genuine joy and happiness. And
he's a joyful character.
Yeah, and I looked back on it, and it's sort of like, and he made that, and like, I guess maybe that seems obvious, but if you really think about it, I think we tend to associate. We see a psychotic being happy, and we're like, oh, you're just crazy. And Ramsay was like, no,
he's really having a wonderful time.
Yeah, he's like, I grounded it in the fact that he'd had a horrible childhood. It's not easy being a bastard in the North, and with his father. It's not like growing up like Jon did with Ned. Catelyn was rough, but he still had Ned, who obviously cared about him, and he grew up with brothers and sisters in a family, and he was accepted to a degree. Ramsay really wasn't, and Roose manipulated him and obviously used his approval as a carrot. So it was really miserable. And then it's when we see him, he's finally old enough and independent enough to have enough agency to do what he wants to do, which is murder and torture people.
Right.
And that's not good. And I also feel a little bit bad, like, kind of speaking at being slightly having realized that this guy's had a happy ending a little bit, which did result in a horrible sexual assault on one of our main characters. But I thought it was a very interesting and very intelligent choice as the actor to make to really ground him in some humanity.
Yeah.
And I think that's why the character worked as well as it did.
I think it all boils down to the fact that you cannot play a character that no one thinks they're evil. And so as an actor, you can't play a character. You can't play a character as someone who thinks he's evil, or you're just going to chew the scenery.
Yeah, you're going to go Cruella de Vil. It's going to be Disney two-dimensional villains. And I think, we've seen some two-dimensional villains on this show. I think Cersei's going to become a bit of one, just because she's going to such extremity. She's not right now. We've seen those, but Ramsay, like, the significance of Ramsay and the amount of time that he's around, we wouldn't have been able to sustain that. And I think the show would have suffered for it if they hadn't found such a talented actor. Who clearly gets along with Sophie Turner very well. That was adorable.
Yeah.
And then Bran said, Isaac Hempstead Wright said something really funny. He was like, I honestly don't know how John's going to react when I show up and tell him, hi, by the way, I'm a tree wizard and your dad's not your dad. And it occurred to me, I don't know if you thought this, but I think John's just going to be like, you got to be fucking kidding me. This is the last thing I need right now. Don't tell anybody. Shut up about this. I am a Stark, and that's where it ends.
Or he's just gonna, once again, just walk off.
I'm out. I'm walking away. You guys can have fun. You have fun with this.
As the Hulk music plays.
That's not the Hulk music.
That was Peanuts.
I know.
Alright, so now we gotta go back into the thick of things. Masses of bodies and...
Yeah, masses of live bodies.
Masses of live bodies this time.
It's Saturday. So, check out gothrones.com for more write-ups.
More write-ups. We'll be hitting up some more panels.
Specifically
I'll be
a fan panel today.
Yep. Alex will be live tweeting from that, possibly? Maybe?
Possibly. I may have to be more engaged
goes.
with that. Yeah, it's led by a podcast of Ice and Fire, which is the oldest A Song of Ice and Fire podcast around because it started about the books. So that'll be fun.
And I'll also be live tweeting The Magicians and possibly The Expanse, depending on if I get in.
Yep. So check out at Cyclopticos, CYCLOPTIKO.
Oh, I'm gonna do that from Got Thrones.
Check out also Got Thrones PCast, and check out me at Alex August. You can also check out my Instagram at Alex August for fan art and stuff like that. I was trying to do it from our Thrones one, but my phone was acting up and not letting me into it. So, but those will populate on our Twitter feed. So if you see anything you like, we will be tagging those with artist names and everything like that. So if you want to buy anything, if you want to check these out, there is some stunning work. I think my favorite's been the word art that I posted.
Yeah, that was great.
Yesterday. It's really, really, really cool. They have them for House Stark, they have them for House Targaryen, and House Lannister. So
and then they've got tons of them. They've got it for Hamilton, Princess Bride, Harry Potter.
Oh yeah, this guy his name is Steven. He's really, really amazing. And then I have some other really cool stuff I'm gonna post today too. So wait and see. All right, I think with that, we're back into the fray.
All right, let's roll.
Bye, folks.